Hello, it's time again for my weekly podcast, Stuff You Don't Know About Acts 12. Or maybe you do know it, or maybe you don't agree with it. We launch into now Acts 12. So this is kind of the end of the second section of Acts with Acts 12. So if you think of the first section as largely being in Jerusalem, you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem. And then the second section from like chapters 8 to 12-ish, this is not exactly the way the formal outline is, but it's a nice way to conceptualize Acts. So Jerusalem, chapters 1 to 7, Judea and Samaria, chapters 8 through 12. And so next week, when we launch into Acts 13, we will be doing To the Ends of the Earth. Chapter 13 begins with Paul and Barnabas going out on their first missionary journey. So Acts 12 ends the second section of Acts conceptually, the Judea and Samaria part of the book of Acts. You may not have known that. Chapter 12, we see the first disciple killed, James. This is James, the brother of John. This is James, the son of Zebedee. And he's put to death by yet another Herod. We've seen lots of Herods in the Bible up to this point. Herod the Great, who tried to kill the babies in Bethlehem, was the Herod when Jesus was born. Herod Antipas was the Herod that put John the Baptist to death, beheaded him. Archelaus ruled in Jerusalem after Herod the Great, and Matthew talks about Joseph and Mary going north to Nazareth because of Archelaus. And so this is what the fourth Herod that we learn about in the Bible, Herod Agrippa the First. Interestingly enough, he is considered very positively by non-Christian Jews. Philo seems to consider him very positively. I think Philo credits Herod Agrippa I for stopping Caligula's attempt to set up a statue of himself in the Jerusalem temple. Herod is viewed very positively in Roman circles, but not in the New Testament. In the New Testament, Herod Agrippa is a bad guy, and not least because he puts James, the son of Zebedee, to death. By the way, do you remember when James and John, they were fishermen, Jesus calls them in Mark 1 by the Sea of Galilee, remember on their way to Jerusalem in Mark 10, James and John take Jesus aside and say, "Psst, hey, Jesus, when the kingdom of God comes, when we are going to Jerusalem, the kingdom of God is going to come, you're going to be king, and you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel, and Israel, it's going to be great. Can we sit on your right and left hand? I'll be the vice president, he'll be the, second vice president." And of course, Jesus says, you have no idea. Do you know what you're asking? Are you able to drink from the cup that I'm about to drink? Meaning, are you able to die like I'm about to die? And they say, yeah, give me the cup. We can drink from the cup. Yeah, well, we're glad to drink from the cup. And Jesus says, you will drink from the cup, but that's not for me to give, who's on my right and left hand. Which leads us to believe that James and John, the son of Zebedee, both died a martyr's death. We know that explicitly here in Acts 12 because James, the son of Zebedee, is put to death. There are lots of other James, by the way, in the New Testament. There's James, the half-brother of Jesus, who we'll meet in Acts 15, who seems to be the leader of the Jerusalem church, and the book of James in the New Testament is his. And there's also James the Less, or James the son of Alphaeus, one of the other disciples. This is James, the son of Zebedee. Now, of course, you may say, wait a minute, isn't John, only John could live his whole life through, isn't John the one that didn't die? Well, the New Testament never really says that. Die by martyrdom, I mean. John 21, they debate, is John going to live his whole life, But actually it doesn't say John, does it? It's the beloved disciple. Well, we'll have to wait for another series someday, Stuff You Don't Know About the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John never says that the beloved disciple is John, the son of Zebedee. There were other Johns around, but I'm going to stop right there because that's other stuff. Maybe I'll do Stuff You Didn't Know About Revelation after I do Stuff You Don't Know About Acts. So James is the first disciple to die. This seems to be an escalation. Remember back when we did Stuff You Didn't Know About Acts 8, we were a little puzzled by the fact that even though persecution breaks out against the church, the disciples don't have to leave town. And we're like, wait, wouldn't they be the first ones that are persecuted? And I concluded that actually the persecution of Acts 8 is a persecution against Greek-speaking Christianity, not really Aramaic-speaking Christianity. Peter doesn't leave town in the persecution in Acts 8, but I almost find it funny. Peter leaves town immediately. He says, hey, I'm out of prison. Tell James I'm gone. And he leaves. He doesn't stick around to say, I'll tell James in the morning. He's like, I'm out of here, when Peter is actually the object of persecution. There seems to be some sort of an escalation here. I wish we knew the details. Herod Agrippa, Acts 12 says that Herod Agrippa puts James to death. Probably, he's a son of thunder, right? Apparently he's been causing waves in the city of Jerusalem. I'm assuming that he did something that ticked Herod off. Herod, by the way, was king from AD 40 to AD 44, this particular Herod. There had not been a king since Herod the Great. Herod the Great was king for a long time. But for this 4-year period, and this shows how much the Romans liked, Roman emperors and such liked Herod Agrippa the first, they made him king from AD 40 to AD 44. Very short reign, as we will see his end in a second. But anyway, this time Peter leaves town. And so seems to be an escalation of the state and now the state versus Christianity. There seems to have been an escalation in Acts 12. And who knows, maybe this is when the other disciples really get out of Jerusalem, not in Acts 8. Peter isn't sure if he's having a vision. I love this story. It's kind of like, I love this vision. Hey, guard. And if you're watching the video version, I just waved at you. Hey, guard. Oh, this is a neat vision. I like this. I'm walking right past the guards, and in one of my profound spiritual reflections, I wrote a little book for fun about, 40 sayings that aren't real. But anyway, in one of them, I think Peter draws a mustache on the guards as he's leaving. This is fun. They don't see me. But he gets out into the street, and then the angel that's leading him disappears, and he's like, hey, this is real. I really like it now. And then he goes to a prayer meeting at Mary's house. This is Mary, the mother of John Mark. This is probably a pretty big house. Who knows? Maybe this is the house where the upper room was, whereas the day of Pentecost broke out, and perhaps who knows, maybe even where they had the Lord's Supper. But it's Mary's house. I don't know whether her husband's dead or whether he's not as engaged as she is. We have to consider at least the possibility that her husband is alive, but she is the one wearing the spiritual pants in the family. But anyway, they go to Mary's house. This is John Mark's mother. We'll meet John Mark in the next chapter, in Acts 13, in more detail. But they're having this prayer meeting. There's a servant girl named Rhoda. She's a maidservant. I find this interesting, that she seems to be a servant girl. Now, I don't know her. I assume she's Jewish. Maybe she just works there. We don't know the details. But it's a reminder that God doesn't always upend the social structures all at once. That's not perhaps his number one priority. I don't think that means that, and therefore let's just let injustices continue in society. I don't think that's the inference. It's certainly not the Wesleyan inference. That's not what Wesleyans believe. But it may very well be that there is some social dynamic here that we would not think is the kingdom best. But anyway, that's not important right now. I love this story. They're praying, Lord, please help Peter to have an easy death. Help them to chop his head off in one cut rather than several cuts. Like, who was that? There was a Mary in the 1500s that Queen Elizabeth had beheaded, and it just didn't go well in the chopping. But that's not important right now. Lord, please help Peter to have a good death. And then Peter's at the door. Ding dong. Rhoda, it's me. Let me in. And she's so flustered and excited, and she runs to them. She says, Peter's at the door. Peter's at the door. And they're like, no, please go back, Rhoda. We're praying that Peter will have an easy death. And she's persistent. No, really, Peter is at the door. And they're like, they've already killed him. It's his angel. And this is an interesting thing. When we get to Acts 23, we'll find out that Sadducees don't believe in resurrection. And it says neither spirit nor angel. Now, a lot of times people read that as they don't believe in resurrection, they don't believe in 2, spirit, and they don't believe in 3, angels. But that's not the way the grammar of that, Acts 23, is it? I'm not sure the verse. But anyway, it says they don't believe in resurrection, spirit or angel. I think it's N.T. Wright, Tom Wright, who suggested that Luke may be thinking of intermediate states. Are we spirits in the intermediate states, or are we angels in the intermediate states? Another possibility is that some Jews or some Pharisees thought resurrection was an angel kind of resurrection, which of course has led some to be intrigued by Mark 12, where it says they neither give nor are given in marriage, but they're in the resurrection. They're like the angels. What does that mean? What is he saying? But anyway, it would seem that what they're thinking, and of course Acts doesn't say they're right. Acts just is talking about what they might be thinking, and they think, well, it's Peter, and he's in an angel state. Peter's become an angel. You've heard people say that in the church. Oh, we become angels when we die. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. That kind of a thing. And so some think, oh, this might be Peter's angel, what he turned into after he died. But of course, that's not true. It's really Peter. So finally, the poor guy, let me in, Rhoda. Let me in. Shh, we're praying that Peter will have an easy death. Let me in. Let me in. Oh, he's already dead. It's like they don't believe that prayer actually works. Well, anyway, the end of the chapter ends with the death of Herod Agrippa, who sometimes I call the Worm King, or his intestines explode. Basically, he has a very shiny outfit. He's in Caesarea on the coastline. And he has which is where the governor's headquarters is. They also had a place in Jerusalem, but he's in Caesarea. You can go visit it. He has a very shiny, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose. Herod had a very shiny outfit, and the sun apparently hit it just right, and it was like he was transporter beaming, shining, and the people said, "This isn't a man, no. This is a god." Did they actually mean it? I don't know. Maybe some did. Maybe some were flattering him. Flattery is the name of the game with kings and people like this. And Herod, he thinks, yes, I am a god. He doesn't say, no, don't do that. Don't bow down to me. I'm just a man. That's not what he does. He kind of says, yes, maybe I am a god. And then his intestines explode. It would seem that he dies pretty quickly thereafter, maybe even the same day. But he certainly has something bad goes wrong with Herod, and he dies, having had a very short time as king. By the way, Josephus, the Jewish historian, also records the death of Herod, and his account is actually very similar to the book of Acts. In fact, there's a scholar named Richard Purvo, who I'm not recommending you buy his commentary, but anyway, he basically thinks that Luke is actually using Josephus as a record, as a basis for his account. That's an intriguing possibility, but one that we will not discuss any further because this video's over. And this has been Stuff You Don't Know About Acts 12 with Ken Schenk.